sure that we have the history of the property. You know, just to make sure that we have it all, make sure that we clean title, make sure we know the vesting on who the person that's selling it, the new buyers, exactly what names they want to be on title. We speak to the realtors, we make sure that we get the commissions correct. We do the surveys on the property, which you also keep. So if you want to do any, like let's say you want to add a fence or a pool, you know, you would use that survey to do so. We order the estoppel letters if you have an association in the property, or if it's a condominium. Then we get the estoppel letter, which lets us know exactly how much the maintenance is per month, or association is per month for that property. Then we speak to the lenders, and then we give the lenders pretty much the title search and let them know exactly the information of the property, what they need to know about the property. We give them the survey, they give us all your information. They're the ones that at the end will give us the numbers so that we can provide you what we call closing disclosure. And that's pretty much what I call it, is a receipt of all the fees that you're gonna be charged at the end of closing. And then you'll see it, and it's itemized, and it'll let you know exactly what you're paying for and to whom. And then at that point, we would give you the cash to close, which is letting you know what you have to pay finally at the end of closing. You would wire it to our account. They used to be cashier's checks, but now everybody likes a wire. So we get a wire, and then the bank gives us the documentations for you to sign. At that moment, we will schedule it with the buyer, with the seller, with the realtors, and we schedule you guys, and you guys would come to our office, or because of COVID, we can come to you, and then we will get the paperwork signed. We will then send that paperwork to the lender. The lender will review all the documents that we sent them, and then they'll give us the funding number or go ahead, and then we'll release the funds to the appropriate parties, and then we'll be giving you your keys. So that's what we do. We're the ones that handle the whole transaction in the back end. And we have,
there's, you know, let's talk a little bit about fees. You know, there's fees involved in buying a home. Obviously, you know, we've heard already about, you know, having down payment. So we know that depending on the program you have, you're gonna have to have from your own funds, you know, anywhere from 3%, 5%, anywhere in that range usually is what the most common down payment is. So that's something that you need, obviously, as a down payment. Then there's other costs that are known as closing costs. Okay, and those closing costs involve fees from your title policies, fees that we charge as a title company, the fees that the lender charges. You have fees, for example, on call prepaids, so your homeowner's insurance, your taxes, things like that that are collected up front. You also have transfer taxes, okay? If you have the taxes, you know, the county or state collect based on the amount of the mortgage amount. Okay, there's another one called on the deed, but typically, typically the seller pays for those fees. Now, you gotta remember that on a sales contract, everything is negotiable. Okay, there are standard fees that typically the buyer or seller pays for, but everything is negotiable, and that's gonna be up to, you know, what your real estate agent can negotiate. And, you know, it depends also on the market. Like right now, you know, it's a strong seller's market. Sellers are pretty much getting whatever they want and more in some occasions because, you know, they have a whole bunch of offers the same day that they actually list a home. So it doesn't work out to your advantage, but that's where a good realtor, you know, comes in. That's where they can negotiate, be creative, you know, be very professional. You know, when you have a professional real estate agent and he or she comes across with, you know, the proper documentation, your pre-qualification, all those things, the listing agent actually, you know, is more comfortable and maybe accepting that offer. So all these things, you know, going back to the fees, there's fees that are gonna be involved. From our end, you definitely can get two estimates because we don't know typically what the lender's gonna charge or what interest rate you may have or things like that nature. But we can give you and provide you an estimate of the fees that are more related to us, title and transfer. And when you sit down with your lender, they can give you a good faith estimate, which is gonna give you the other costs involved with the lending. So when you combine those two things, you have a good idea. There's no reason why you shouldn't have a good idea of what your fees are gonna be. Now, the majority of you here in this room, I would probably venture to say that all of you are thinking about financing, and in my opinion, okay, there's no wrong in doing it, but in my opinion, you should always start out with the money. Unless you have enough money to pay for the home, right, cash, or you won the lottery yesterday, now you wanna buy a home, then that's okay. But most people obviously don't have the kind of money needed to purchase a home, and they need financing. You should work with a lender first, so you have, like it was said, a plan. You know, everybody here is capable of buying, doesn't mean you can buy today, but maybe you can buy next week, next month, maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now. But if you have a plan in place, which you and your lender can start working on, then you have, you know, basically a roadmap of where you need to be. So does that mean that you need to work on your credit? Does that mean you may need maybe extra income, maybe a second job, maybe start reporting more money? You know, maybe you are earning the money, but you're not reporting it correctly. So those are all the things that, you know, having a plan is gonna alleviate in getting you to where you wanna be.
And we're always here for our clients. Not only are we a title company, I've been doing this since 1994. Okay, so I just told you my age. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I take a lot of pride in my clients. They call me all day long, 7 days a week, you know, 24 hours a day. We're here to walk you through, make you feel comfortable. If you have any questions, there's no questions too small or too big to ask. You can always give us a call, and we're always at your service, because that's what we pride ourselves in, service. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free.
I have one question. Now, it's a question that we get a lot when it's pertaining to marriage in South Florida primary. How important is it to, you know, basically as you purchasing a home as a primary residence, about your spouse or your husband or wife being on?
They have to be on title. If it's homestead and you're legally married, your spouse has to be on title. Yeah, if it's non-homestead, then your spouse doesn't have to be on title. But if it's your homestead, spouse has to be on title.
And here in Florida, your spouse has a right to, you know, whatever you have. It doesn't mean that everybody has individual assets. They have a right to the assets, no matter what. The only thing is, like he says, if it's a homestead, then the spouse always has to sign out, or it has to be on time.
Can you add your child to your private home?
You can. Do I suggest it? If the child is under 18, I wouldn't suggest it, because then you would have to do a guardian, what is it called? A guardianship? And it becomes, God forbid, something happens to the parent, then it becomes a big problem in court.
Well, if they're over 18.
If they're over 18, sure, go ahead.
Okay, I would ask, cause it's, okay, not married and you add your child.
That's not a
You
problem.
become married, do that married individual oversees the child being on the title?
No, if you're married, let's say.
You're not married when you purchase it.
You're not married,
Right,
and you put your child,
Correct.
you can do that.
And then you become married, and he still, that person gets.
Well, then you go to court, and then you see what the judge says at that moment. But your child will have an interest in the property.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, his interest will be,
50%,
his interest. Like your spouse will not be able to take away his interest. The interest there that is in question is your interest.
In that case, you'll have, if you and him are entitled, unless you specify, it's 50-50. Now, if he gets married, then his wife is entitled to
So
his 50.
his 50, correct, because he's on title. Not your 50, but his 50. That's a good question.
I gotta go back to that question. Go ahead. What you got? I gotta be clear. Go ahead.
With regards to financing, when it comes to the title and the deed, so I know that some instances for financing purposes, there can be one person on the title and then the spouse is added to the deed. Can you kind of clarify?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you wanna take this or you want me to take it?
I mean, typically, you know, we communicate with the lender, But in that case, I mean, they don't mind, obviously, if you're a spouse, they actually want you on there because it makes it easier for them documenting that, and in case you default, it makes it easier. But again, you know, the spouse is always gonna be named if you default in any, court proceedings. But you are right, sometimes, let's say like, you know, one person may have the income to credit and they get the loan, but then obviously they're married and they wanna be entitled, yeah, that's possible. We do it all the time.
So say for instance, you wanna do that a year or so after you already closed on the house, how would you go about that?
Do what?
Add someone to the title?
You do it quickly, deed. Let's say you own a mortgage. You can always deed anybody in, but if you're the owner of that mortgage, you can't deed yourself out unless the property is paid off. So you can deed whoever in and out.
At that point, remember.
You want me to
the
repeat
loan-
it?
No,
The loan, I'm sorry.
cause I'm always a little slow sometimes processing. So you bought the house, 5 years later you get married. What happens now? What you do, what?
No, you don't do anything. When she's asking me if she can deed and she can add anybody into title, I told her she can add anybody into title.
But do you have to because of he's
No.
your husband?
No, you
Okay.
don't have to do it.
Okay.
But now,
What happened?
but now at this point, he legally has rights because now there's a marriage in place.
Right, he legally has, but she doesn't have to do a deed.
But he has rights to my
Oh,
property.
she has rights, right, at
He has
court.
rights to my property now.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, you're married.
Yeah. Because legally, if you're married, now, yeah, unless you do prenup
what I thought.
and whatever was before.
Yeah.
The reason I asked because when I purchased my house, I want my daughter on it, just in case I get married. You're not taking this whole house because you wasn't with me when I got it.
No, but mine's a little different. You just wasn't married at the time.
My daughter was. So I'm really trying to find out if I get married and something happened to me, how my whole house go to my daughter. Because if I purchase it without you, you don't get nothing.
That's part of being married. You didn't even want to marry.
I think she's trying to ask if there's an agreement
You
to
just want to
say
marry
that
that thought
this is
process.
only
You shouldn't
for.
want that man. If you think, yeah, he's gonna take your daughter's house. But it happens. But it happens though. Yeah. Yeah, do the will.
There's